Right, guys. The topic today is the basic link mechanism, basics of mechanism. Basically, we are talking about basic link mechanisms. The terminology which we need to understand before going to the inversion of mechanisms are something here. What is a machine? We should find out what is a machine. What is the difference from machine to mechanism? What is kinematic pair? What are links and what are kinematic chains? Then we'll go to degree of freedom. We'll have two equations, Kurzweil equation, Rutler's equation. We have Grahov's law, and we'll go for mechanism further. The first topic which we are learning today is how can you define some link, how a body of a link can be defined. The name itself is defining that it is a link, right? It's linking two different things or two different parts. We are talking about machine. So the link is a machine part which is connecting two different parts of a machine. Two different parts of a machine are connected together. So by that, we will have some relative motion in between them. So this is a part of a machine and this is a part of a machine. These two parts of a machine are connected to each other so that they have some relative motion between them. These are what you define. How these are you define a link, right? We define it as kinematic link or an element. Here you can see that each part of a machine which moves relative to some other part is known as kinematic link, right? One part of a machine which is moving relative to other part of a machine is defined as a kinematic link or element, right? A link may contain several parts. It may contain several parts. It is not to be only one part in the link. In that they can also be fastened together. That means there is no need to be the link always should be moving. It can also be fixed one, but the only concept is one part of a machine. If it is moving relative to other part of a machine, we define it as a link, right? Now we'll see an example. Kinematic link, we also define it as an element. We see a simple basic example to define a link, right? Here you're having some reciprocating steam engine. In this, we have different types of links. Let me explain you. The basic parts of this reciprocating steam engine is you have crank here, you have connecting rods, you have a head, cross head, and you have some piston arrangement. If I'm going to explain you different types of links here, here we have a link between crank and the connecting rod because crank is moving with respect to the connecting rod. The same way, we also have a link between the connecting rod and the cross head because connecting rod and cross head are moving in a relative way. This cross head and piston are also moving with relative to each other, so they are having some link there. And if you are seeing totality of an reciprocating engine, we have the basic concept is this crankshafts will start rotating. So by that the piston starts reciprocating. So the piston and the crank is also having some link between them because if one and the other are having relative motion, we define it as kinematic link and or an element. So this is a basic simple example to define what is a link and how can you define a link. So link is a basic. If one part of a machine member is having relative motion to other part, we define it as a kinematic link or an element. Okay. Next, different types of links. How can you classify different types of links? But before going to that, any link need not to be a rigid body. Link need not to be a rigid body. It must be a resisting body. What is the difference between rigid and resistant body? A rigid body is something in which if you apply any kind of load, there will be no change happening there. We define it as rigid bodies. Whereas resisting bodies are, you will have partial changes in them. In the form of deformation also, you can see only partial changes in them. We define them as resisting bodies. So a link need not to have a rigid body, but it should be a resisting body. And other thing, it should have some relative motion because as you are defining link itself is that it is a machine, it is a part of a machine which should have some relative motion between them. So two things which are important. One is it should have relative motion between them, and the other is it should be a resisting body for a link to be called as a link. And now the types of links we have here, you have three types of links. The first one is rigid link. Rigid itself, what I am telling you is it does not undergo any form of deformation. That means there is a link in a machine body which is transmitting some motion to one place to another place, but it should not undergo any deformation. We define it as rigid links. Flexible link means it is also transmitting some motion, but it can have partly deformed. The link there can partly deformed without affecting the motion. Because we are transmitting motion from one place to another place. If there is no deformation happening in this transmission, that means it is rigid link. If there is partly deformed, but still it is not affecting the motion of a body, it is flexible. Whereas fluid link is something you will have a thin layer of a fluid which acts as a link. You take an example of బీరువా ఏదైనా తీసుకోండి బీరువా ఏదైనా మూవ్ చేయడానికి ట్రై చేయండి or any with very large heavy machinery. We want to move that from one place to another place or just to change the direction of it. We'll have some oil like thing between them. That means floor is one part of a machine. The surface of the machinery or almara is one surface. In between, you will have some fluid. This fluid will act as a link, and then you can easily move the machinery to different directions. That is what you can define as a fluid link. So there are three types of links: rigid link, flexible link, and fluid link. And for a link to be called as a link, we should find out two things: it should have a relative motion, it should be a resisting body, need not to be a rigid body. Right? Next, what is basic difference between structure and a machine? Machine is something which we define as you will give some energy to the machine and you will have some work output. You take anything, you take fan, you take a refrigerator or any AC or any TV, you will use some kind of energy to it and we are expecting some output of work from it. Whereas structure is very simple thing, it is just to carry some loads. Take an example of some structures like bridges, dams. We are not expecting any work output from them. They are only meant for carrying loads. Those are defined as structures. But whereas machine, you expect some work output from the machine. Right? There are three differences, major differences between machine and the structure. The part of a machine is more related to one another, whereas members of the structure do not move to one another. Because in machine you have relative motion, and structures you don't have relative motion. It should not also move because bridges, for best example, the structures you can't see just moving from one place to another place. So machine have available energy into useful work, whereas structure is no form to energy to useful work. And you go through these things, you will find out the basic things. That is what the difference between structure and machine is. Next one, we'll go for pair. Pair itself is defining it as you have two links, right? Link is a machine part or part of a machine which is having relative motion to one another. If you combine these two links, we define it as a pair. So kinematic pair, how can I defining it is you two links of a machine which are in contact to each other and they move relative to each other. If the relative motion is constrained, constrained means you are making some effort to move the body or to move the link in a specified direction which you want or which you don't want. For an example, take a body which can move in three different directions, X, Y, and Z. You are constraining it to only one direction. So you are putting some effort to make the body to move only in one direction. That is what constraining is. So how we are defining a kinematic pair? You have two links which are connected to each other, which have relative motion between them, and you are making some motion constrained there. That is defined as kinematic pairs. Okay. Then how many ways you can constrain this motion? It is of three types. One is completely constrained motion. Second is incompletely constrained motion. The third one is successfully constrained motion. What is this completely constrained motion? Irrespective of the direction of force you are applying, you apply force in any direction, it doesn't matter. So irrespective of direction of force you apply, the motion is said to be completely constrained. We take an example here, having an example. You have a square hole and you are trying to fit a square bar in the hole. Imagine yourself, you have a square hole and you are trying to insert some square bar in it. You try to apply any kind of forces on it, but you can only move body in one direction. That is what such a completely constrained motion is. Irrespective of the direction of forces you are applying, the body or the motion is completely constrained to one direction or a specified direction or a definite direction. They are known as completely constrained motion. Usually reciprocating motions are comes under this completely constrained motion, right? Second one is incompletely constrained motion. Here you can have more than one direction of constrained motion. In the previous one, in the completely constrained motions, if you see, you have only one constrained motion. That means you have only one definite direction. Here you have more than one constrained motion. Then it is incompletely constrained motion. Take an example of a square, hole, circular hole with a shaft moving there. Now here you have two types of motions here. One you can go reciprocating, one you can revolve or rotate. whether the way you can change the force you're applying, you can have two more than one direction or movement. They are known as incompletely constrained motions. The third one is you have successfully constrained motion. What is successfully constrained motion is to bring two elements or links together, we need some external force. They can't be themselves. We need some other means. See, when motion between two elements forms a pair, in such a that constrained motion is not completed by itself. You can't constrain the motion by itself. That means in two cases, whether it is completely or incompletely, there it depends upon the geometry of a body. In the first case, it is a square rod, square hole and a square rod. It is on geometry. The second one is it is a circular hole and a shaft. It is also in geometry, which happens by itself. We are not doing anything there. But here in a successfully constrained motion, they cannot be constrained by itself. They need by some other means the motion should be constrained. They are known as successfully constrained motions. Okay. So what is the need of finding these three constrained motions is we started learning about what is a kinematic pair. How we define kinematic pair? You have two links which are connected to each other. We have relative motion between them, and you are constraining any one motion of it. So it is kinematic pair. To define constrained motion, we have three types, which is completely constrained motion, incompletely constrained motion, and successfully constrained motion, which we have done. Now you classify different types of pairs. How can you classify your different types of pairs? Means depending upon a relative motion between them, how they are moving, the both links, how they are moving. If they are sliding to each other, then it is sliding pair. If they are turning, you think you know, right? Turning means you are turning with respect to a fixed axis. Take a cycle tire. You have a fixed axis and the tire will rotate around the axis. We define it as what we say turning. Rolling is something, right? You take a road roller or rolling or a simple pencil or pen rolling on a table, it is rolling. Okay. Screw pair. Take a screw and a nut. We'll have some helical form of movement. We define it as a screw pair. Spherical is something you will have a mounted jocket or a joint. You will have socket. You will have some lever type thing. I think all of you are very well aware of joysticks, right? Or a gear, car gearing system. You have the socket and you will have mount. You will mount something. You have a ball and you mount some gear like thing or lever like thing. You can move this in any number of directions. Or you get an example of a mirror, side mirror of a car. You take anything. Or in some ways we have pen stands. You can move in any direction. These are some kinds of a spherical pair. All this comes under the relative motion between the two links. The next one is contact between the elements. You have lower pair and you have higher pair. Lower pair means if you have the both links, we are talking about pairs, so you have two links, minimum of two links. If they have surface contact between them, this is surface contact. This is a link, this is a link, you have surface contact. It is lower pair. If you have point contact or line contact, if you have point contact or line contact, we define it as higher pair. If you have surface contact, we define it as lower pair. If you have point or surface line contact, we define it as higher pair. Next one, the type of closures we have. That means combining or getting together all the links. If they are self-closed pairs, that means no need to have any external thing. They are closed by themselves. They are defined as self-closed pairs. Force closed pairs, the name itself defining it. You should apply some force on it and you try to complete or what we say, you close the thing. You define it as a force closed pairs. Spring arrangements is the best example for closed force closed pairs, because you need to apply some force on the spring to become a link or to have some relative motion. There are best examples for all force closed pairs. These are classifications of kinematic pairs. Next one is you will go for kinematic chain. How can we define a kinematic chain? Okay. So the basic concept of defining a kinematic chain is chain itself is something you need to add something. You are adding kinematic pairs together here. How we are adding kinematic? You are coupling kinematic pairs such that the first link and the last link should have some definite motion or should transmit some motion. Then it is set to a kinematic chain. Right? What are they here? You have kinematic pairs here. They are coupled in such a way that the last link is joined to the first link to transmit some definite motion. The last and the first link are joined find it whether you have some definite motion there, then they are defined as kinematic chains, right? First and the last link, you add all the pairs, you couple them, the first and the last link should be combined, and you should have some definite motion there, then they are defined as kinematic chains. So to explain chains, we have an example to explain some chains. Before going to explain the chains, we need to find, we need to some calculation part. What exactly happening there is, you see, if you have to form a chain, we need pairs. To form pair, we need links, right? The number of pairs we have is denoted by P. The number of links you have is denoted by L. To find out whether the chain can have relative motion or the chain can have definite motion or not, we have an equation. Right? What I'm explaining, try to please understand. Kinematic link is something, one part of a machine, if it is moving related to other part, it is kinematic link. Okay. If you have two links like this and they are connected to each other and they are having some relative motion, it is pair. Now these pairs are coupled to each other to form a chain. Now the problem is we need to find whether this chain is having some definite motion or not. To find whether they are having definite motion or not, we have some formula or some equations. What are those? The first formula here we have is L is equal to 2p minus 4. See, L is equal to 2p minus 4, an equation which can define whether we have the chain can have some relative motion or not. Where here L is number of links, P is number of pairs. In the same way, you also have some joints, right? I think you know what is a joint. The junction point is known as joint. Calculating with respect to joints, then it is J is equal to 3 by 2 L minus 2. Now, basic thing which you need to remember here is each link can form two pairs. If this is a link, this can form one pair from this here, this side, and one pair from this side. So each link can have two pairs. Remember, right? We have different types of kinematic pairs here. We usually use lower pairs here, not the higher pairs. I'm again explaining the difference between lower and higher. If you have some surface contact, those are lower pairs. If you have some point or a line contact, those are higher pairs. So here, taking for an example, we only use lower pairs. We are not using higher pairs. If you want to use higher pairs, you need to remember one higher pair is equivalent to two lower pairs. We don't use them. If you are using higher pairs, you should remember one higher pair is equal to or equivalent to two lower pairs, right? We'll see a small example. Here you have some a triangle which is a three-link mechanism. You have here three links. If you see link 1 AB, link 2 BC, link 3 C. The same way you have three pairs. See A, this is a pair, this is a pair, this is a pair. The same way you have three joints, right? A is a joint, B is a joint, and C is a joint. So I have 3, 3, and 3. Substitute in the two equations. The first one, 3, L is equal to P minus 4. We have LHS is greater than RHS. Keep it, right? I think you understood. Now substitute the second thing. That means on J is equal to 3 by 2 L minus 2. Substitute there. The same formula. Where lengths are 3, pairs are 3, and joints are 3. You also have the same thing where LHS is greater than RHS. Keep it there. The next example here you have is 4-bar chain mechanism. Link 1, link 2, link 3, and link 4. You have 4 links here: AB, BC, CD, and DA, right? The same way you have 4 pairs. So this is a pair, this is a pair, this is a pair, and this is a pair. The same way you have 4 joints. A is a joint, B is a joint, C is a joint, and D is a joint. You have 4 links, 4 pairs, and 4 joints. Substitute in the equation, calculate it. You have LHS is equal to RHS. Substitute in the equation with the joints. You have LHS is equal to RHS, right? Second case. In the first case, we got LHS is greater than RHS. The second case, we got LHS equal to RHS. Now we'll go to the third one. You have a 5-link mechanism. This is a 5-link mechanism. Link 1, link 2, link 3, link 4. AB is a link, BC, CD, DE, EA are link. The same way, we have 5 pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 pairs. So 5 joints. A is a joint, B is a joint, C is a joint, D is a joint, and E is a joint. So 5 links, 5 pairs, and 5 joints. Substitute in the equation. You have LHS less than RHS. Substitute the same equation with the joints. You have LHS less than RHS. So we have three conditions here. The first case LHS is greater than RHS. The second case is LHS equal to RHS. The third case is LHS less than RHS. What exactly happens here is if LHS is less than or greater than RHS, we define it as a locked chain. That means there is no relative motion happening there. If LHS is greater than RHS, we define it as a locked chain. There is no relative motion happening in the locked chain. Right? Next, if LHS is equal to RHS, we define it as you have 1 degree of freedom. The kinematic chain is having 1 degree of freedom if LHS is equal to RHS. How can you define what we say? The degree of freedom means? Degree of freedom is something which defines us or which let us know how many parameters we need to define a motion. That means, take an example. If this is my fingertip is a machine, it is moving like this, right? Now, it is moving only in one direction. So, how many parameters are required to define the motion is only one, because it is moving only in horizontal way. Now, degree of freedom is one. We need only one parameter to define the motion. If it is two, we need two parameters x and y. If it is three, we need to define x, y, z three parameters. That is what degree of freedom is. So, if LHS is equal to RHS, degree of freedom is 1. If LHS is less than RHS, it is unconstrained motion, which I have already explained you. We have constrained motions like completely constrained, incompletely constrained, and successfully constrained motion. If it is less than LHS is less than RHS, we define it as unconstrained motions. Okay, these are three cases. Please remember. Next, we go for types of joints in the chain. How many types of joints we have? We usually go for three joints. The first one is binary, second one is ternary, and the third one is quaternary. We'll see what is binary joint. Binary joints name itself is explaining that binary means it has two things, right? We are having a small example of binary joints here. If you see, to explain that binary joint, we need an equation which we already used to. See, the same equation which we are used before, but an extra term you are having here is h by 2. What is this h by 2? How you got this h by 2 is, while explaining there, we said that we are only using lower pairs. We are not using any higher pairs. But if we want to use any higher pairs, we explained there that one higher pair is equivalent to two lower pairs. So one higher pair is equivalent to two lower pairs. So if you want to have how many? If you want to have lower pairs, how you can write that? It is h by 2. That is what you have. The remaining formula is the same one. J is equal to 3 by 2 L minus 2. This h by 2 is only the higher pair. If you want to consider the higher pair, you need to hide that h by 2. Okay. We'll see what is this binary joint. Here you have four joints. One, two, three, four. We call it binary because it is having two pairs. If A is making two pairs, B is making two pairs, C is making two pairs, and D is making two pairs. So if we define it as binary joints, right? So if you see how many joints we have here is four. A, B, C, D. Right? H, we don't consider higher pair. So in the equation, you don't consider higher pair. Forget about this H. L, how many links you have? Again, you have four links. A, B, B, C, C, D, D. Substituting the equation, we have 4 is equal to 4. Okay, you have some 4 is equal to 4, which I explained you. If you have both the same, you will have 1 degree of freedom. The previous topic I explained it. Right now, you go for ternary joints. Ternary is, you know what is ternary, right? One is making 3. If you see the diagram here, A is binary because it is making only 2. B is also binary because it is also making only 2 pairs. D is also binary because it is also making only 2 pairs. But E is not at all binary because it is making 3 pairs. The same way C is also not binary, it is also making 3 pairs. Now if you see, you have here 2 binary and 3 binary and 2 ternary. A, B and D are binary, E and C are ternary, right? So 3 binary, this is that 3 here, plus 1 ternary joint is equal to 2 binary joints. Remember, once again I'm explaining, 1 ternary joint is equal to 2 binary joints. As we having 2 ternary joints, which is E and C, we multiply 2 into 2, so we have 7. So the number of joints here we have is 7. But the links are 6, but the joints here we have is 7. substitute in the equation, you will have 7 is equal to 7. So that means LH is equal to RHS. So you have 1 degree of freedom. I think you got it. Next one is quaternary joints, right? What is quaternary means? One link is making, so one joint is making 4. We'll see. We take any example. We will see. A is making 3 here. 1, 2, 3. The same way B is also making 3. 1, 2, 3. Where D is making only 2. 1, 2. E is making 1, 2, 3. This F is also making 3. 1, 2, 3. G is also making 3. 1, 2, and 3. C is making 1, 2, and 3. Got it? I think you're understanding how to write number of joints, right? Now, if you see this C here, it is having 4. Now see 1, 2, 3, 4. Then that is known as quaternary joint. The ternary part you understood there, right? One ternary is equal to 2 binary joints, right? Now one quaternary is equal to 3 binary joints, right? One quaternary joint is equal to 3 binary joints. Before, one ternary is equal to 2 binary joints. Here, one quaternary is equal to 3 binary joints. Okay, please go through it. You will understand it very easily. So in the next class, we will define what is mechanism and what is exactly the degree of freedom